Welcome, gents. The world rarely attacks what it understands. It targets what it can't figure out. Sigma males are not targeted because they're loud. They're targeted because they're quiet and yet still powerful. They're not trying to prove anything, but somehow they always stand out. Not because they want attention, but because they've built their lives in a way that doesn't depend on it. That independence, that emotional discipline, that refusal to play games. It unsettles people. In a world that expects obedience, performance, and validation seeking, Sigma males do the opposite. They don't explain themselves, they don't chase approval, and they don't engage with fake respect or shallow friendships. That alone makes people uncomfortable, especially those who depend on control, emotional manipulation, or herd mentality to feel important. You might not always see it, but the fact that you think for yourself, move on your own time, and speak only when it matters, that is powerful. That's real leadership, even if it's silent. And when you don't need people, they notice. Some admire it, others fear it. But almost all are affected by it. You're not misunderstood, you're just not easy to label. And that's why you get targeted, not because you're wrong, but because you don't play by the same rules everyone else blindly follows. This isn't something to fix. It's something to understand and protect. If you're walking your own path, keep walking. The targeting is proof that you're not just blending in, you're standing firm, and that in itself is strength. So gents, let's dive deeper into 12 things why they target you. Number 1, they embody what most men secretly wish they could be. There's a quiet truth that most people won't say out loud. Deep down, a lot of men wish they could live like Sigma males. No pretending, no need to impress anyone. Just full freedom to be themselves, without apology and without permission. But most don't have that. They're stuck playing a part. The good guy, the tough guy, the popular guy. Always adjusting, always performing. The Sigma male doesn't do that. He doesn't build his identity around how others see him. He doesn't need the nods, the handshakes, or the constant approval. His confidence doesn't come from a group, a job title, or even a relationship. It comes from knowing exactly who he is, flaws, strengths, all of it. That's rare, and that's why it unsettles people. You'll notice it in the way some men react to him. They might tease him for being too quiet or call him antisocial when really he's just not interested in shallow talk. Or they'll mock his independence, acting like they're joking. But there's tension in it, because deep down they feel it. He has something they don't. A kind of peace that doesn't come from having more, but from needing less. It's not about being better than anyone, it's about being free from needing to impress anyone. Imagine not feeling the pressure to post every moment online, not needing your friends to approve of your choices, and not adjusting who you are just to keep a seat at someone else's table. That's how a Sigma male lives. And that freedom, that self-containment, it's magnetic and intimidating at the same time. That's why the world often tries to label him, challenge him, or bring him down. Because it's easier to attack what you don't understand than to admit you admire it. The truth is, the Sigma male represents something most men quietly crave, a life built on their own terms, and that makes him unforgettable. Number 2, they're a walking contradiction, and that unsettles people. There's something about Sigma males that people can't quite wrap their heads around, and that alone makes them a target. One minute he seems detached and emotionless. The next he's showing a level of care so deep it throws people off. He's not rude, he's just selective. He's not arrogant. He simply doesn't need to prove anything. That's what makes him different. And it drives people crazy. Most people want you to be one thing. Either you're soft or tough, introverted or bold, emotional or logical. But a Sigma male doesn't fit into that box. He's calm under pressure, but not numb. He's quiet in groups, but can speak with impact when he chooses. He doesn't chase the spotlight, yet when he speaks, everyone listens. That contradiction confuses people who rely on predictable behavior to feel in control. Here's the thing, society wants simple stories. They want to label you so they can file you away and move on. But with a Sigma male, there's no simple story. You might meet him and assume he doesn't care, but then you see how fiercely he protects the few people he lets close. You might think he's distant, but he's just guarding a peace that took years to build. People get uncomfortable when they can't read someone. Think about it. When someone is too unpredictable, others start making up stories just to explain it. He must be hiding something. He's arrogant. He's cold. In reality, he just doesn't perform for anyone, and that lack of performance is rare and threatening. Being a walking contradiction doesn't mean he's confused. It means he's full of layers, depth, and control. He's not trying to be mysterious. He just refuses to be one-dimensional. And that's what makes him unforgettable. Not because he's loud, but because he's real in a world that keeps pretending. So if you're that type of man, own it. You don't owe the world an explanation for being everything they don't expect. Keep being the contradiction they can't figure out. It's your greatest strength. Number 3, they won't be converted by fear, love, or loneliness. This is what sets Sigma males apart, in a way that makes people deeply uncomfortable. They move through life untouched by the usual tools that bend or break others. Fear, love, loneliness. The 3 big levers society uses to shape behavior simply don't work on them, and that's exactly why people try so hard to figure them out or take them down. Fear is used to keep people in line. Do this or you'll lose your job. Say this or you'll be judged. But Sigma males don't live their lives under someone else's threat. They've already lost things, they've already faced consequences, and they've survived all of it. Fear can't trap someone who's already made peace with walking alone. Then there's love. The kind that comes with strings attached. The emotional deals. If you love me, you'll do this. If you care, you'll stay, even when it drains you. Sigma males love deeply, but they don't love blindly. You can't manipulate them with affection. You can't guilt them into submission. If the love is pure, they'll give you everything. But the moment it becomes a cage, they're gone. And loneliness, that's the tool most people can't handle. It's what drives them to chase empty conversations, cling to the wrong people, or fake a smile just to feel seen. But Sigma males understand that being alone doesn't mean being broken. In fact, solitude is where they grow the most. They use the quiet to reflect, build, and recharge. They don't fear being alone, they fear being fake. That's why they're called untouchable. Not because they're cold or emotionless, but because they're not easy to sway. You can't threaten them into silence, love bomb them into obedience, or isolate them into weakness. And in a world where most people are controlled by these exact things, being immune to them makes the Sigma male impossible to control and impossible to forget. Number 4, they're unbiasable. Here's something most people don't expect. Not everyone has a price. Sigma males prove that. You can offer them status, a fancy title, even public praise, and they'll still turn it down if it doesn't align with who they are. That's rare. That's dangerous to those who rely on control. In most circles, influence comes with rewards. A compliment here, a promotion there, an invite to the right events. It's all part of the game. Do what's expected, say what's safe, and you'll be accepted. But Sigma males don't play that game. They're not chasing applause. They're not trying to impress a boss, a crowd, or a fan base. So when someone tries to win them over with shiny offers and it doesn't work, confusion kicks in, frustration follows. Let's say a Sigma male works in a company and turns down a promotion because it comes with politics, fake relationships, and a loss of freedom. People will say he's being difficult, that he's ungrateful. But the truth is he just values peace over position. He'd rather earn less and sleep well than sell his time and soul for approval. You can't buy him with compliments either. He's not moved by sweet talk or empty praise. He knows when someone's being genuine and when they're just trying to get close for their own gain. That awareness makes it almost impossible to manipulate him. And that's exactly why people label him as arrogant or cold. But he's not arrogant, he's just not desperate. There's a big difference. The Sigma male is unbiasable because he's already rich in the things that actually matter: clarity, freedom, and self-respect. You can't bribe a man who's not looking for validation. You can't control a man who's willing to walk away. And in a world where most people are for sale in some way, that kind of integrity makes him stand out and makes others uncomfortable. Number 5, they won't react just because you want them to. Sigma males have mastered something that most people never learn: emotional discipline. You can insult them, push their buttons, or even try to provoke them in front of a crowd, and they'll give you absolutely nothing. No outburst, no emotional meltdown, no dramatic comeback, just silence, maybe a stare, maybe a slight smirk, but that's it. And for people who feed off reactions, that's maddening. Some individuals thrive on chaos. They'll say something slick, throw a passive-aggressive comment, or create drama just to see how others respond. Most people will bite the bait. They'll argue, defend themselves, prove a point, not the Sigma male. He sees the setup from a mile away and he simply chooses not to play. That kind of control isn't weakness, it's power, real power, because it takes strength to stay calm when someone is clearly trying to get under your skin. It takes confidence to know that someone's opinion doesn't deserve your energy, and it takes wisdom to understand that not every action deserves a reaction. Imagine someone trying to call him out in front of others, expecting a big scene. Instead, he stays quiet, looks at them, and moves on like nothing happened. That silence, that calm refusal to entertain the nonsense, that's what gets under their skin even more than if he yelled. And that's the thing, people want control. They want to know they can trigger you, move you, shake you. When they realize they can't, they feel powerless. That's why Sigma males often get labeled as cold or emotionless. Not because they don't feel, but because they don't perform. They choose when and how to respond. And if something isn't worth it, they'll ignore it completely. Not to prove anything, but because their peace matters more than someone's opinion. That's not indifference, that's emotional mastery. Number 6, they see what's not being said. Sigma males have this rare ability. They don't just listen to what you're saying, they listen to everything you're not. While most people get caught up in words, Sigmas are tuned into tone, timing, body language, the little pauses you didn't mean to make. They notice the way your eyes shift when you're lying, the change in your voice when you're hiding something, the pattern behind the stories you keep telling. They connect the dots others don't even see. And that can make people deeply uncomfortable. You could be in the middle of a conversation thinking you're keeping it cool, but the Sigma already knows you're not being real. He's not judging you, he's just aware. And awareness at that level is intimidating, especially to people who aren't used to being seen that clearly. Ever notice how some people avoid deep conversations with someone who's too perceptive? That's the Sigma effect. He might not say much, but his silence isn't empty. He's gathering, sensing, reading everything. You say you're fine, but he can tell you're not. You say you're excited, but he picks up the hesitation behind your smile. It's not magic, it's attention. And most people aren't used to that kind of focus. That's why manipulators struggle around him. He doesn't need proof to know something is off. He feels it. He notices patterns. When your words don't match your actions, when your kindness feels rehearsed, when your stories contradict themselves. You might fool the room, but you won't fool him. Being seen like that is uncomfortable because it means you can't hide behind the usual games. And in a world where many people wear masks to survive, the Sigma male becomes a threat. Not because he exposes others, but because his presence silently demands honesty. He doesn't call it out, he doesn't embarrass you. But knowing that someone sees straight through the performance is enough to shake people up. Number 7, they process pain privately and emerge stronger. Sigma males don't broadcast their pain. They don't go around telling everyone how hard life's been or how much they're hurting. When something breaks them, they don't fall apart in public. They go silent. They disappear into their own space, not to run away from the pain, but to face it head on, without the noise and without the eyes of people who only want to watch, not help. This is the kind of strength that makes people uncomfortable. In a world where many wear their wounds like badges or use suffering to gain sympathy, the Sigma male does the exact opposite. He doesn't want pity, he doesn't want attention. He wants clarity. He wants to understand what hurt him, why it hurt, and how to make sure he never stays stuck in it. That's why after heartbreak, betrayal, or failure, you won't see him venting online or spilling his story to everyone around him. Instead, he goes underground, quietly. He cuts off the noise, processes everything on his own terms, and begins to rebuild, brick by brick, mindset by mindset. And when he returns, he's not limping. He's sharper, calmer, more grounded than before. That's what confuses people. They expected him to come back weaker. But he comes back with more control, more wisdom, and less tolerance for anything fake or shallow. This kind of resilience can't be taught. It's forged in solitude. And because most people can't handle being alone with their pain, they resent those who can. They don't understand how he made it through without attention or applause. They think he's emotionally distant. In reality, he just knows that pain is a personal teacher, not a public performance. What Sigma males learn in silence, others try to learn through sympathy. And that difference is exactly why they emerge not just healed, but elevated. Number 8. They make no excuses and tolerate none. Sigma males don't sugarcoat. They don't wrap the truth in pretty words to make it easier to swallow. If something's off, they'll say it. If you're lying to yourself, they'll call it out. Not because they enjoy confrontation, but because they can't stand pretending. And they have zero patience for excuses, especially the ones people tell themselves. They've cut through too much of their own nonsense to tolerate it in others. You see, Sigma males have spent time in the trenches with themselves. They've faced their own bad habits, their laziness, their self-doubt. They know how easy it is to create excuses. I didn't have time. It's not my fault. I'll start tomorrow. And because they've heard it in their own head and had to fight through it, they're quick to spot it in others. That's why they're not moved by over-explaining or sob stories dressed up as explanations. They can tell when someone is being real and when they're just avoiding responsibility, and they don't play along. If you're slacking, they'll call it. If you're lying, even to yourself, they'll point it out. Not to shame you, but to wake you up. And it throws people off. Some will take offense. Others will call them harsh. But the truth is, Sigma males care about truth more than comfort. They'd rather have a real conversation that stings than a fake one that soothes. They live by this rule themselves. They don't make excuses for their own failures either. If they mess up, they own it. If they're falling behind, they fix it. That's what makes their standards so real. They hold themselves to them first. In a world full of blame games and soft lies, a Sigma's raw honesty can feel like a punch. But for those who are ready to grow, it's exactly what they need. No fluff, no masks, just truth, and the push to do better. Number 9, they don't offer emotional loopholes. One thing that completely throws manipulators off is this. Sigma males don't leave openings for emotional games. You can't guilt them into doing what you want. You can't flatter them into submission. And you definitely can't use pity to pull their strings. That kind of control just doesn't work on them. And for people who survive by manipulating others, it's terrifying. Most manipulation isn't loud. It's subtle. It sounds like, after everything I've done for you, or you're the only one who understands me, or I guess you don't care like I thought. These are the emotional traps that catch most people, but not the Sigma. He hears that tone, sees the setup, and stays silent. Not out of coldness, but because he refuses to be dragged into a situation built on emotional guilt. Manipulators depend on emotional access. They need to know what makes you feel bad, what makes you feel obligated, what you want to hear. But the Sigma male doesn't give them that map. He doesn't reveal what buttons can be pushed. He doesn't over-explain, doesn't defend himself to prove he cares, and doesn't chase approval when someone pulls away to punish him. Even praise doesn't move him. Tell him he's brilliant, amazing, rare, and it won't inflate his ego. He's already settled within himself, and he knows when a compliment is sincere versus when it's a setup. That makes him immune to flattery tactics used to get close or win influence. What scares manipulators most is not being able to read him, not being able to move him emotionally, not being able to get a reaction. Because once they realize they have no handle, no soft spot to exploit, they lose their power. The Sigma male isn't emotionally unavailable, he's just emotionally protected. And that boundary? It's solid, it's calm, and it's absolutely unbreakable to anyone trying to use emotion as a weapon. Number 10, they make power feel powerless. Sigma males have a way of making authority nervous, not by challenging it loudly, but by not reacting to it at all. They don't flinch at titles. They don't get impressed by status. They don't shrink in the face of power because they don't recognize rank as something sacred. To them, respect is earned by character, not by position. And that quiet refusal to bow is exactly what unsettles people at the top. Most power structures depend on one thing: obedience. You're supposed to listen when someone important speaks. You're expected to follow orders, agree publicly, nod when you're supposed to. But Sigma males don't play along with that. If they don't respect you as a person, your title means nothing. And that's dangerous to people who rely on hierarchy to keep others in line. Think about the boss who threatens to fire someone unless they fall in line, or the alpha male who tries to dominate every conversation with his loud presence. When a Sigma male responds with indifference or silence, the whole dynamic shifts. There's no fear, no reaction, no need to defend or submit. Just calm observation, and sometimes a simple no. That reaction, or lack of one, can shake people more than any loud rebellion, because it's not defiance for show. It's just complete freedom from intimidation. They don't rebel because they're angry. They don't resist to prove a point. They simply don't need external approval or fear-based rules to function. That kind of mindset is immune to power plays, and that makes them hard to control. People in charge don't know what to do with someone they can't scare, flatter, or manipulate. That's why Sigma males make power feel powerless, because they're not playing the same game. And when you can't be moved by titles, threats, or pressure, you become the one thing authority fears most: uncontrollable. Number 11, they choose purpose over popularity. Sigma males don't chase popularity. They're not trying to please the crowd, win everyone over, or stay on the right side of public opinion. Their decisions aren't shaped by trends, and they don't water down their beliefs just to stay likable. They move with purpose. And when that purpose goes against what's popular, they still stay the course. That's exactly why they stand out, and why they're often targeted. Most people, whether they admit it or not, want approval. They want likes, praise, validation. They shape their image to fit what's expected. But Sigma males aren't interested in applause, they're interested in meaning. If something matters to them, they'll stick to it, even if it costs them support, followers, or friends. That kind of freedom makes people nervous, because it means they can't be swayed by public shaming. You can't threaten them with cancel culture. You can't pressure them with silence or social punishment. They're not emotionally invested in being seen as agreeable. They're invested in staying real. Take a Sigma male who speaks an uncomfortable truth. He won't backtrack just because the room goes quiet. He won't change his stance just because people start looking at him differently. And when others try to shame him into submission through criticism, isolation, or passive-aggressive guilt, it doesn't land. Why? Because his self-worth doesn't come from others. That's why people who depend on groupthink and crowd control see Sigmas as a problem. You can't cancel someone who doesn't need your stage. You can't scare someone who's already prepared to walk alone. And you can't control someone who's more committed to truth than to popularity. It's not that Sigma males want to be rebels, they're just unwilling to betray themselves. And in a world where so many people trade authenticity for approval, that kind of integrity becomes a threat and a target. Number 12, they don't give people roles to play. Most people don't realize how addicted they are to roles: the victim who always needs saving, the hero who needs to be praised, the villain who craves control. These roles create drama, emotional leverage, and predictable reactions. But Sigma males don't participate in any of that. They don't buy into it, they don't play along, and they definitely don't feed it. That's what makes them so frustrating to those who live off emotional games. Let's say someone tries to play the victim. They complain, throw hints, and expect the Sigma to jump in with sympathy or a solution. But he doesn't. He stays calm, asks direct questions, and makes it clear that responsibility still matters. No emotional rewards, no rescuing, just honesty. That alone is enough to upset someone who's used to being coddled. Then you have the self-declared heroes, the ones who always need to be seen as the wise one, the helper, the fixer. Around a Sigma male, that role doesn't stick either. He doesn't need saving. He doesn't need advice unless he asks. He doesn't give them the emotional dependency they secretly crave. And without that, the hero feels useless, even invisible. Even those who try to be the villain, the manipulator, the control freak, get shut down quietly. Not with anger or arguments, but with complete disengagement. The Sigma doesn't give them the reaction they need to feel powerful. He just walks away. He starves the game of attention, and that infuriates people who rely on chaos to feel relevant. The truth is, Sigma males don't operate in emotional theater. They don't assign people roles, and they refuse to take on one themselves. They respond to authenticity, not drama. That refusal to play along disrupts the entire script others depend on. And when someone's entire identity is tied to a role they can't play anymore, they don't just feel rejected. They feel exposed. And nothing makes people angrier than realizing their favorite performance has no audience. In final words, you're not targeted because you're weak. You're targeted because they couldn't figure you out. And that scares them. Being a Sigma male isn't about trying to be different. It's about refusing to be fake. It's about choosing truth over popularity, solitude over noise, and peace over attention. And in a world where people are rewarded for being predictable and easy to influence, that kind of quiet strength doesn't go unnoticed. It becomes a threat. You're not targeted because you failed to fit in. You're targeted because you never needed to. because you don't respond to pressure. You don't bend to manipulation, and you're not driven by the same things most people chase. That kind of independence exposes the systems others rely on to feel powerful. It shakes their control. You see through things. You notice what's not being said. You're calm when others need chaos. You don't overreact. You don't explain yourself. And most of all, you don't need anyone to tell you who you are. That's rare. That's dangerous. Not to you, but to anyone who survives by controlling, impressing, or being worshipped. People might label you cold, arrogant, or distant. Let them. You know better. You know what you've walked through. You know how much noise you've had to silence just to think clearly. You know how much strength it takes to stay true when the world keeps trying to shape you into something else. The truth is, you are not misunderstood. You are just not easy to use. And that alone makes you powerful. So keep moving in silence. Keep choosing depth. Keep staying grounded even when the world gets loud. You don't owe anyone a watered-down version of yourself. The path you walk isn't always easy, but it's real. And that's what sets you apart. Not because you're trying to be above anyone, but because you finally realized you don't need to be like them. You're not broken. You're built differently. And that's exactly why they try to bring you down. Thank you for watching, Gents, and God bless you.